We'll show guys how you make a chatterbait where the blade actually attaches to the hook, just like chatterbait. Z-Man has a patent on that, so if you make these, you're only supposed to use them for your own personal use. That's why you see other companies, they'll have that little ring from the hook to the blade itself. What you're going to need is a jig hook with a straight eye on it. These are Mustad 5/0, and you're going to need a casting jig or something like that. I use basically like a swim jig mold on mine, and it comes out good. And I've caught so many fish. This basically took over spinnerbaits being my favorite lure. And bladed jig works just as well, if not even better, for the kind of fishing I do. So what you're going to need is some 5/0 hooks, straight hooks, your mold. If you can get a hold of some of these little Teflon pull pins, said this is a jig mold, so it's got a spot for a weed guard. You put this in there where your little pin for a weed guard would go. Just push it down a little bit to where you won't get the hole from where the weed guard will go. It just basically just keeps you from having to cut out more lead at the end. Just a little less waste. And that's basically it. I'll show y'all how it's done. Alright, once your mold's all good and hot, your pot's ready to pour, go ahead and put your hook in there like it's supposed to go. If you can get a hold of some of these Teflon weed guard pull pins, get some of these. It'll make it a little bit easier for you. You know, normally when you put a pin in there, you want to push it all the way up to give you a little hollow spot to put your weed guard in. Well, we're not using weed guards on these because it's going to be a bladed jig. No weed guards. So you want to push it back a little bit to where it won't be a hole in your mold. And just like with spinner baits, you pour this mold down here, and once it hits this hook, it's going to cool that lead off a little bit. So I go ahead and take a torch and heat it all up, help that lead flow down there into the bottom until we get a good pour. Close it up, make sure you're good and tight. Open it up, pull it out. That was a good pour. Now, what you want to do, the way I like to do it, is go ahead and take this sprue off the top. Kind of got to work a little fast. The faster the better when you do these, because right now your hook is hot from that lead. Just go ahead and cut your sprue off with some dikes. Take it over to some kind of hard flat surface. I use this vise right here. I got a center punch. It's a 1/32. As you see, it kind of goes into your hook eye a little bit. What I'm going to do is lay the edge of that hook eye on a flat surface. I'll take a hammer and tap it in. It's going to gap that hook eye. You gotta take it easy because these hooks will break. You want about an 1/8 inch gap. You can see that. It's got a little gap to it now. Take it out, make sure your gap stays. And then we got to clean it up. I'll go ahead and take these dikes again. That little spot where the weed guard would have went, go ahead and trim it real quick. If you got any little dingleberries where your weed guard or your bait keeper go ahead and knock it off. Now you might get a little funky spot right here where that hook eye pulled out. I like to take a razor knife and just snip it off to where it's smooth. Then take a file and go ahead and where you cut the sprue off earlier, clean it up. Don't take much. And then right there where you cut out where the weed guard would have went, go ahead and smooth it down. Make sure you ain't got no bad spots around the collar. Make sure your bait keeper is good and sharp. And that's it. Now we got that gap. That's what we need to put the blade on. This jig is ready for powder coat. Alright, once you're ready to powder coat, just take it by the hook, heat it up just enough to where it starts getting shiny. Don't overdo it or it'll melt, then you're screwed. Just enough to get it high enough where it sticks to that powder coat. The powder coat sticks to it. Stick it in there and give it a little swish, tap it off. It's ready to go. Alright, with these, since we got to put that blade in there, that paint is going to hinder your movement of your blade. So what I do is I let it cool to the touch, and I'll take a razor blade and I'll try to scrape as much of this paint off as I can, because if you go ahead and bake it now, that powder coat's going to get baked on to that hook eye, and it's a pain in the butt to get off then. So I'm going to let this cool, and I'm going to show y'all what I mean about cleaning that hook eye off. It's really easy, but it'll save you a lot of time in the long run. Alright, it's cooled down a little bit. So I'll take a razor knife. You gotta be careful not to screw up the paint on the head of the jig. You just scrape it. It comes off real easy. Scrape it all the way around. You don't have to get it perfect, because once we get the blade on, if it's got any little bitty pieces of paint left, you just kind of swivel that blade around it, and it'll get the rest of it off. But you want to get the bulk of it off now. The hardest part is on the inside. You gotta make sure you get it though. Alright, so that wasn't that bad, was it? Now most of the paint is off the eye of the hook. We got a good gap. We're powder coated. We're ready to put it in the oven to bake. I use a regular, just cheap old toaster oven I got from Walmart for like 20 bucks. You don't want to use the toaster oven that you're going to actually eat out of. Spend 20 bucks, go to Walmart, get you a toaster oven just for doing your powder coat. And you really want to bake these on, because if you don't, this first tree or rock you hit, that paint's going to come right off. You powder coat it, you got to hammer it to try to get it off. I do mine at about 350 degrees for 25 to 30 minutes. Mine's got a little timer on it, and it'll automatically shut off.